this meeting of Southwark's Cabinet. My name is Peter John. I'm still this week leader of the council, although a very warm welcome to Councillor Kieran Williams, who was elected last night by Southwark Labour Group to be leader of the group and will become leader of the council next Wednesday the 16th. So congratulations, Kieran. And I know that the council is in incredibly safe hands, and your ambitions for our future are as great as anyone's. And so, you know, as I say, it will be a great future for Southwark with you at the helm. So good to see you. Eleanor Kelly should be joining. Are you, Eleanor? You're on the call yet? She may be on another call for about 15 minutes and then join us.
I'm here.
Oh, fantastic! A very warm welcome to Eleanor. And Doreen Forrester Brown is our Director of Law and Democracy today. Other officers are present. I'm going to ask members to introduce themselves when they come to speak, if they come to speak, rather than going through a roll call at this time. In terms of voting, obviously councillors are voting members. Microphones, please mute them and do not unmute unless you're speaking. Filming and recording are permitted at our meetings, and this meeting is being recorded and uploaded to Southwark Council's YouTube channel. I'm not aware of any apologies for this meeting. Virginia or Paula, anything? No?
No, Chair.
Okay, so notification of urgent items. There are two items which are late and urgent today. The Southwark Stands Together programme, item 10, and item 11, the Community Hub, supporting the needs of the most vulnerable. And we will be taking these items for consideration today on the reasons for urgency that are set out in those reports. I am going to vary the order of business as well today, so that we will take the refresh of the council plan as our last item this afternoon. There are no closed items to report today. Are there any disclosable pecuniary interest or dispensations which anyone needs to make? Norman Coombe, one of our legal officers, gave advice to Cabinet members, so everyone's well aware of that advice. There are no public questions today, so we move on to a consideration of the minutes of our meeting, which we held on the 14th of July 2020. Can we agree those minutes as an accurate record, please?
Agreed.
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 Thank you very much indeed, colleagues. There are no deputation requests today, so we move on to item 8, which is our draft care home quality assurance scrutiny review part 1, older people health and adult social care scrutiny commission. I don't know whether Vicki Elisa, Councillor Victoria Elisa, is present. She's been invited to attend.
Yeah, I'm here, Peter.
Okay, well, Victoria, would you like to present your report to Cabinet, please?
Yeah, thank you, Cabinet, for receiving my report, which was sent over a week ago. What I'm going to do is do a quick sort of short summary of the some key recommendations rather than going through the whole 18 pages, because I'm sure you've read it. This report sets out to review the quality of residential and nursing care used by Southwark adults to ensure people in both local and out-of-borough placements are safe, well, and in suitable accommodation. The review has a particular focus on examining the assurance and inspection processes in place to see if they're performing well. As the review was nearing completion, the COVID-19 pandemic struck, which placed care home residents at particular risk in Southwark. In order to address this, the Commission heard further evidence from other stakeholders. Some of the key findings and recommendations is the Council is active in monitoring local homes, and the Commission endorses the organisational commitment shown by the Council and Age UK, Lewisham and Southwark to restart the lay inspection programme and to establish complementary and strong working relationships. The Commission heard it can be difficult to resolve concerns through the complaints process, and the complaints process may be underused locally by residents, family and friends. Southwark ought to work with care homes to increase the promotion and uptake of complaints and benchmark complaints with other comparative boroughs. This ought to be part of an annual report to Cabinet on resident on residential and nursing care. I think that's a new recommendation. Because what we found is that too many older people are still housed outside of the borough. I think it's nearly 70%, despite the council deciding in 2015 that extra nursing provision is needed locally. Currently, there are 169 residents placed outside of Southwark, mainly in South London. Of these, just over a quarter are outside of London. This is a long way for family and friends to visit. Residents placed further away from home will also not benefit the closer monitoring which is undertaken in more local provision by monitoring visits and the lay inspection programme. What we found is 80% of residents wanted to be placed closer to home. The Commission endorses the current approach to delivering extra nursing care places locally. However, we recommend we expedite the current plans and review future plans to ensure that there will be enough local capacity, particularly for local people with more challenging dementia and other disorders. Even with good monitoring in place, quality remains a challenge given the resource challenges that we face, and Southwark ought to investigate avenues to increase this and tackle the staffing challenges as well. Activities are not always comprehensive enough. Staffing can be spread too thinly and disrepair can be an issue, even in homes that are classed as good. The Commission recommended the Council lobby government to bring forward the expected white paper on social care funding to ensure the service is sufficiently well funded and councils can agree fees with care homes that allows for payment of the London Living Wage, full sick pay and other terms and conditions that reflect the value that we place on this important service. To conclude, COVID-19, as of 15th of July, 60 Southwark care home residents had lost their lives to the coronavirus. Plans must be put in place to manage a second wave and the risk of further fatalities by ensuring adequate PPE, testing, and that care homes are not treated as a step-down facility. There's also been a 52% rise nationally in deaths amongst people with dementia during lockdown, outside of the coronavirus figures. It is vital that we ensure older people are not isolated, and as such, the Commission recommends rolling out key work status to family and friends of older people in care homes, starting with people with dementia and moving to other isolated older people. That's just a quick snapshot because I didn't want to bore you with all the details. I can take any questions.
Thank you very much indeed, Victoria. Are there any questions for Victoria on her scrutiny subcommission's commission's report? Otherwise, I'll ask Jasmine to respond. Somebody's hand is up.
That's mine, I think.
It is Jasmine. Okay, well, Jasmine, I was going to ask you to respond in any event. So if you could respond, and obviously when we receive this report, we will take it and come back within 8 weeks for a full response. But Jasmine.
Okay, I just wanted to say to Councillor Alissi that it's an amazing report. I have looked at it and it couldn't be more timely. And I just wanted to thank you and your committee and all of the people that gave evidence. I think I gave some evidence too, for their contribution. It couldn't be more timely. I mean, we've actually seen, through this crisis and the pandemic that we're under, that the sticking plaster that the government have around adult social care and older people's services, it just didn't manage. And, what we saw, the 60 fatalities that you talked about, you're absolutely right. We have to be ready for a second wave and we will not, squander that time. I'm happy to say that I have consulted with our strategic director and our officers, and we see nothing wrong with these recommendations, that they will enhance our work. We will formally come back on that within 8 weeks, but I did want to say thank you again for this timely piece of work.
Thank you, Jasmine. Okay, well, in the absence of anyone else indicating, we received the report. I've got someone called Joan Thomas who's put her hand up. Who's Joan? Joan?
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, right. What I wanted to know is that, there's been stuff in the press about people in care homes, staff in care homes not being tested. First of all, we heard they were going to be tested on a weekly basis. Then we heard they're not going to be tested. So I just wanted to find out what the current situation is on testing. What's going to be happening? Is there going to be regular testing of staff? Where's that going to be?
Can I answer that?
Please.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for your question, Joan. My understanding is that's something, testing in care homes, that we put pressure on government for because it was totally inadequate. My understanding that it is with colleagues from public health and adult social care, and that there is a joint approach on this. And myself and Councillor Okoto, who is actually on the call, have regular briefings. So my understanding is that is going on, unless anyone wants to add anything else. I know that we've got a strategic director on the call and public health too.
Okay, Victoria Elisa has got her hand up as well. So Vicky, do you want to say anything?
I just want to follow up. Thanks the question, Joan. But I think if you look at one of the recommendations, we said that there should be a concerted systematic system for the council to ensure that that testing continues. So I think we've said, rather than just thinking about it as a recommendation, so once it's there, if we get into the habit of always testing and coordinate with those care providers, it doesn't drop. We don't wait for a second wave. We don't wait till when there's a glitch of cases in some part of the borough. It's a regular thing that we do as a council, and then we report back on an annual basis about care homes, because I think that before COVID-19 we thought, oh, care homes is one of those things we have to look at, but the problem is that COVID-19 has shown us that maybe we've taken our eye off the ball, and as a council we need to focus and concentrate on that and bring it up to the level of other provision we have within the borough. You know, so social care shouldn't be sort of, unfortunately, a poor relation from the staff to the delivery to the provision.
Sorry.
Okay, I don't want us to get too
okay.
Because this is a report that we'll be reporting back on, Joan. I mean, what I do know is that there are concerns at the moment that testing is being diverted away. Testing capacity is being diverted away from London towards the north. Now, that's something which we as a local authority don't have direct control over, but it's something that we are making representations to because it has such an impact on trying to get London life back to some level of normality, particularly our schools and businesses. So it's something that we'll continue to lobby on. And obviously, when this report comes back within 8 weeks, then there will be a fuller response. But it is an issue which is very much at the top of the agenda and is being pursued right across London at this time. I've been in conversation with colleagues all day, actually, about it. Okay, so with that, if colleagues are content, we will take this away. The recommendations, we consider the recommendations, and the relevant cabinet member, whoever that might be, will come back and report back within 8 weeks.
Thank you.
I can safely say it won't be me.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Victoria. Thank you very much indeed. Everyone content with that. Let's move on then to Southwark Stands Together programme, which is on the supplemental agenda number 1, and Johnson City will introduce us, please.
Thank you, Chair, and I'm really pleased to bring this paper along, and I'm joined by Jasvinder as well, and also other colleagues as well. This has very much been a team effort, so I will do the introduction, but certainly cabinet colleagues will chip in as well. So many of us will remember a few months ago, sadly, the death of George Floyd, and it sparked protests in the US, but also sparked a protest here in the UK. And it highlighted deep-rooted inequalities, and particularly racial inequalities and injustice. And as a borough, we responded and rose to the challenge and started off from a position of listening to our communities and set about a three-pronged approach. So first, we set out to listen, to review, and then also put forward solutions. So to talk to the listen part, over the last 8 weeks, we've both engaged with our community groups, residents right across the borough, over 1,500 of our residents, and we've been able to hear their experiences and their stories of racial injustice. They've been really powerful stories, stretching from both the young and the old. And in addition to the 11 themed events, we've had 4 general listening events. We've also had face-to-face events, and we've also had a survey as well, which has been filled out by over 1,200 of our local residents. And one thing that particularly struck me was hearing stories from young people about both their concerns about their ambitions, but also their interactions with both health, education, and interactions with the police as well. So it has led to a report that we've put forward that I'm presenting today. And the report has highlighted key themes such as education, interaction with policing, health, employment and business, review of our public realm, and also a really, really important part of our work was also looking internally and a discussion with our staff. Each area has themed recommendations, and I will look to colleagues who may want to talk specifically about those themed recommendations. I'll highlight what next. Particularly, we've highlighted there will be a work plan following this to come to Cabinet in October to detail how we move forward these recommendations, because one of the key things that we heard from communities is that we cannot let this just be something that is forgotten, and this does need to be worked on moving forward as well. So there will be a work plan. There will be further work in respect of the review of our public realm, ensuring that our communities remain at that part of that review, particularly our young people. And then also finally, there will be milestones and measurements as to what we classify as success and how do we ensure that we are making tangible gains as to the recommendations over the next months and years, together with how we're reviewing it moving forward. So that's it in a nutshell. I know colleagues, and I can see many hands from colleagues in terms of wanting to come in. So I will let colleagues come in, but thank you to all of the team officers that have participated, our community groups, and also Cabinet colleagues for playing a vital role in putting this together.
Thanks, Johnson, for that excellent introduction. Okay, I've got Rebecca, Leo, Evelyn, Steph, and see who's left then. Okay, Rebecca.
Thanks, Peter. And I just want to echo Johnson's comments about thanking everyone for the speed at which we were able to pull this report together and the amount of work that officers put into making it into a really brilliant paper that's got some really great recommendations that we can take forward. I guess I wanted just to pull out a couple of things specifically around both the culture recommendations and the communities recommendations, which both sit within my current portfolios. So on the culture side of things, I think one of the most important things that's come out of this report is around board diversification and career progression, and it's something that we saw before we started this piece of work. And for those of my Cabinet colleagues who also sit on the various school governing appointment boards that we have, what we always see is that there are a lack of individuals coming forward or being approached to come forward, and we always try our best to make sure that we are being truly representative of our communities. And I'm really delighted that we've got a recommendation in this report that means that we will be able to further support organisations across the borough to make sure that we really are able to help them to produce diverse boards, and to really make sure that we are supporting individuals through their future careers. And then I think on the communities side of things, we had some really, really interesting discussions about how we can further engage some of our communities, and how actually hard to reach isn't really a term that anybody is a fan of, and actually it's about us just needing to do better. Nobody should be hard to reach or is hard to reach. We just need to find different ways of being able to engage and communicate with people. And I think there are two really good ways that we've established of doing this. The first is obviously building on our Empowering Communities programme, which we launched last year. And the ways in which we can look to develop more kind of collaborative relationships completely across the whole of the borough. And the second of those is one that I've been talking about for a couple of years, and I'm really, really pleased that we are finally there, is around our grant making process and our ability to have a single point of entry for grants. I think one of the frustrations that we've had over the last few years is people who know how the council website works and how to find out how they can access different funding streams can very easily do that and get access to that funding. But there are many organisations, and especially during COVID, that we've seen actually came to the council with really interesting and innovative ways to support our communities, and we should be doing more to help them. So I'm really pleased that we've now been able to develop that new portal, and for the further support that we're going to be able to give all of our communities to be able to make sure that they can access that funding going forward as well. Thanks, Peter.
Thanks very much indeed, Rebecca. Leo.
Thanks, Peter. As Rebecca says, this is a really important piece of work, and I think it's critically important that we just keep our focus on it and make sure that when we're developing the detailed actions and following through on these different work streams over the coming months, that we never stop having this conversation, because it's something that many people have fed back to us during the listening exercises. Could kind of fizzle out, but it should be our kind of collective determination that doesn't happen. Huge praise as well to all the cabinet members who've been involved, the officers who pulled this together so quickly, and particularly to Johnson, who's shown absolutely amazing leadership on making this a reality. Just a couple of things I wanted to touch upon. One was in relation to a kind of early initiative on the employment and business and education work stream. So as some of you probably know, we have an initiative to try and improve the diversity of the architecture profession in terms of both what we're doing with our procurement practices, but also longer term by making sure that Southwark teenagers have really great mentoring, internships, university application support, access to workshops and study tours, and long-term support. And we're now doing that through what we call the Dare to Design programme, which has strong links throughout all parts of our new homes programme, as well as everything we're doing in across regeneration. We're partnering with Open City, who are famous for doing the Open House weekend and their Accelerate programme. But it's a key kind of early, tangible initiative to come out of this work, and I hope that there'll be some interesting learning to come out of it to see what does and doesn't work. And the second bit I just wanted to, final bit I just wanted to touch on was in work stream 1, recommendation E, which is on developing the council's procurement practices to be more inclusive. This has been a big focus of many of ours, but particularly myself over the summer, where we found that the outcome of one of our procurement processes on our architecture framework didn't deliver the outcome that we wanted. And I just wanted to express my hope, really, that when it comes to developing that detailed action plan, that we're able to not only push for a more inclusive procurement practices, but to lobby for it as well, because I think the regular kind of legal response has always been that OJU, the European procurement directives, that have been a component part of our EU membership, have kind of tried to provide a level playing field, a focus on equality and non-discrimination. But in so many sectors, particularly many professional sectors, it doesn't address upstream factors that result in very skewed procurement outcomes. So I just want us to have that focus on lobbying, particularly post-Brexit. If there's to be one benefit from Brexit at all, maybe it might be this.
Thanks, Leo. Evelyn.
Well, thank you, Chair. I just want to say, I guess, just echo what everyone said. A big thank you to all the leads that were involved in this, and especially to Johnson, who led this. I mean, this was a quick turnaround, and it was a lot of work, but you led it very, very well. So a big thank you for your work on that. And so I had two themes here: I had public health and policing. And with public health, I think what I was most impressed about was the range of partners that we had around the table, from the big trusts in the borough to all the other smaller community groups that were involved in talking about their experience, and now willing to work with us to ensure that we close that health inequalities gap that unfortunately has been starkly exposed by COVID. With policing, if you've read the report, I mean, there's a bumper of recommendations, but it was really important for us to capture as much as we can, because obviously this was a strong point in most of our discussions, especially with young people, about how they feel and the engagement and the kind of relationship with policing. So it was really important for us to capture that. And I'm proud to say, I mean, there's one recommendation about creating an independent advisory group of young people. And today we've looked at the recruitment of that, and we are going to embark on that very, very soon. So I'm really proud that we've already started kind of rolling out the recommendations, and it's really important to continue this work with the police. I'm also going to start up a councillor group monitoring our stop and search in the borough, because I think that's another area that people were really concerned with. So we need to continue to look at that, but obviously we'll wait to see what happens after this weekend. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And Chair, you're laughing.
No.
But one thing I would want to say is that it's really important that we see this work through. This shouldn't be a flash in the pan. This is something that is going to benefit generations after us. And it's really important that we embed this in our community and ensure that, we certainly create a fairer future for all. Thank you.
Thanks very much indeed, Evelyn. Steph.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. Can I apologise in advance if you hear any voices? My son is playing FIFA on his PS4, and despite 2 closed doors, he's very, very loud. So if you hear the odd noise, that's him. So yeah. So I led on 2 working groups, one around business and one around employment. I just want to say, echo everyone, Johnson, I think you've been amazing leading on this. I think the quick turnaround on this, the support you gave to me in my workshops, actually coming onto the workshops, introducing it and setting the scene was absolutely invaluable. And I also want to thank the officers as well, because I think, the turnaround of the number of events that were held across the board, actually coordinating it, getting all of the feedback in together and actually coming up with an amazing report like this is no mean feat. And I think everybody should be very, very proud of this report and what they've done around that. And that's because, of Johnson's real firm leadership and strong leadership on this as well. The key things that came out of my workshops, and I found them really, really interesting, were that there were some really horrible things and practices that we heard about, but the meetings themselves were very upbeat and very positive. And there was an acceptance that for once that something may come of this, and it really has to come of this. We can't just do the listening events and then leave it. We have to follow through and go back on it and make this part of what we do actually around that. So I think the key things we were looking at on the employment one, it was very much about the opportunities for an employment, how to find those opportunities. I heard a really awful tale of a guy who is very, very qualified, works in construction, is very, very qualified, lives in the borough, has tried to get work in the borough in construction, is unable to do so. He's qualified to a management level, but he said he takes jobs at a lower level because he can't get a role in which his qualifications are. And he said he sees time and again that the foreman or somebody above, who's responsible for the recruitment just gives a nod to somebody and they get the job. And that's got to stop. That nepotism type of thing has got to stop around that. And to the extent that he's had to find work in Luton. And it's wrong. It's wrong that people who live in our borough are not allowed to can't find significant, the opportunities in our borough to do that, and they have to travel to Luton to work there. And I think that was the one. There were lots of examples. That's a key example that will stay with me, actually. But we are, we need to be better. Our employers need to be better and around that, which is why Johnson and I sent out a letter to employers asking them to pledge 5 pledges around committing to the Black Lives Matters and Southwark Stands Together around, and we've had some very positive responses. In terms of employment as well, people were saying that we really, firms should really do blind recruitment where names and education's addresses of schools and that universities are taken out. So every application is blind and it's just the applicant's application around that. So you don't know what background they come from. Everyone's on a level playing field, which takes out some of that unconscious bias there. And actually for young people, they really want a work experience program, a structured work experience program there. I mean, in terms of the business one, it was very much, again, about how can businesses access the finance they need, the support they need around that. And I'm afraid, in terms of finance, a lot of the mainstream banks and that, they employ an algorithm, and we all know what algorithms are like from recent experience. And those algorithms really do discriminate against BAME businesses around that as well. So there's a lot of things around how can we help businesses to put a good tender in, to actually put a good application in and signpost the support that they need around that as well, and give them the opportunities to thrive as well. I find it really powerful, absolutely really, really powerful around that. And, as I said, I just think we really need to take hold of it and really follow through on this. But it was a fantastic exercise to do in terms of the listening, but we can't just listen, we have to act on the listening.
Thanks, Steph. The leader-elect.
Thank you, Peter. I just wanted to add how important this work is, and how important it is that we take the recommendations out of this report and we fully reflect them in our new council plan when we finalise it towards the end of the year. We'll be talking about it later, but it'll be out to consultation over the final months, and there are clearly some actions that come out of this work that need to land in the final version of that plan. So we've got them set front and forward in the council's commitment to deliver, and including some, as Johnson said, some firm commitments around the actual what we will deliver for our own workforce in terms of diversity at the top and in all of the other areas. So I want to just commend Johnson on what's been a fantastic piece of work that has moved our borough forwards.
Thanks, Kieran. Jasmine.
I'll try not to repeat all the amazing comments that have been made, but with such a diverse population as we have in Southwark, it's hardly surprising that a movement like Black Lives Matter hasn't permeated the thinking of, so many residents in Southwark. And, I'm going to join in the congratulations, Johnson. I mean, it's been a hard task managing some of these themes because you really did push it through. And I mean, basically, people are still celebrating that movement, and we are ready. We must be one of the few local authorities that have got so many worked up proposals, and that is only right when you think of our diverse population. I think really I just wanted to celebrate the way that you've managed that. All of the officers have been thanked and thanked and thanked. But really, from managing the education along with Cleo, my fellow councillor, Nina from education, Jess, without all their input, we managed to speak to head teachers, governors, young people, and then we went away with the recommendations and we went back and tested the recommendations with those groups. So thank you, everyone, really. Did I mention Sully too? Helped us working with so many young people. I think really, I don't want to go into it too much because you have actually got the recommendations there. But the fact, that this document has been embraced by the teaching staff, young people, and it's looking at the issues of curriculum. So many young people said to us that they wanted to look at colonialism, they wanted to look at history and understand it. It's not right that people have to wait till A level to, fully understand Black history. So that was an issue. And the teacher training, the teachers were not defensive, they embraced, wanting to have programs, techniques, to go that further, to calling out discrimination and doing something about it. And the issue of school exclusions, that's something that's very live to us in Southwark, and we know that Black students are disproportionately involved in school or impacted by school exclusions. And I think that, the fact that this report is tackling that as well, makes it really timely and really useful. I just think, that this document was done in such breakneck speed. Yes, we have to work with the recommendations, but it will evolve. It will evolve. Because we can keep playing it back to the people that have actually made up the listening exercise, and we can make sure that it really does make a difference. The last point I wanted to make, if I may, is, you may have been a hard taskmaster driving this out, Johnson, but you were open. And, when I said to you, look, we can't not feature children with care experience. We spoke to so many people from our corporate parenting. We had actual massive meetings with children in our care, and they told us actually they wanted to change more than education. They wanted to actually look at drill down in the experience of Black people in our care. And while most of it was positive, they gave us a suite of recommendations which we will make sure that foster carers, are absolutely attuned to cultural needs. So good on you. Thank you so much. And I really look forward to working with everyone in railroading these proposals through.
Thanks, Jasmine. I should have said Deputy Leader-elect in introducing you. Okay, fantastic. Well, supremely positive comments and commitment from everyone around the table here on that report. And there are 7 recommendations for us to endorse, which I think brings this report back with some action plans for October Cabinet. So can we agree those recommendations, please, colleagues?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, we stay with the leader-elect for Community Hub, supporting the needs of the most vulnerable. Kieran.
Thank you, Peter. So this is a report that comes out of a review of the community hub that we established over the last 5 months to respond to COVID-19 and to ensure that vulnerable people in our borough received the support they needed. So the hub itself was a collaboration between the council, the NHS, the voluntary sector, and indeed thousands of volunteers across our borough, and worked to support over 10,000 people to get the help they needed during the peak of lockdown. What this report sets out are broadly 3 things. It sets out recommendations on ensuring that people that receive that support over the last 5 months are stepped down into appropriate support that they need in the future. So for some, indeed, that support need is gone as lockdown has ended in its previous form. But for others, we found actually there were people who were struggling pre-COVID who we've identified through this process, and it's an opportunity to make sure that they do get the support they need in the borough. So there's a set of recommendations on that. The second is the recommendations on should we have another peak in infections locally and a need to respond more rapidly. A set of recommendations about making sure we step up our community hub arrangements again, and people get the support they need. And that is first and foremost to support our voluntary sector partners to do that, and then for the council to come in behind them if the need is higher and that extra support is needed. And then the third area is about the future and what we can learn from all of this work. And I think what has been clearly shown throughout is both an incredible desire and willingness for all of those organisations across voluntary, council and NHS to work together, but also the opportunity to do more and to make sure that we get the support people need in a much more rounded way. I think we heard lots of stories of how that support can feel fragmented and difficult to access. And although we've done a remarkable job in Southwark of protecting advice services, council frontline services like our Southwark Emergency Support Service, Housing Solutions Service, they're not always easy for people to navigate. So there's a role of providing a much more coordinated support network. And so the final set of recommendations are about establishing a Southwark Community Support Alliance, which brings all of those partners together to make it easy and accessible for our residents, not just to get the support they need, but also to contribute to providing that support, so it becomes much more of a reciprocal and mutual model. I don't know if Stephen is here and wants to add anything specific from the recommendations before we get to questions.
That was a very good summary. Just to say there was also very extensive engagement with partners right across the VCS, lots of listening exercises, but we did also take into account what those who'd received the support that this service provided said about their experiences and what they needed moving forward, and that's reflected in the recommendations. And what we're suggesting is that we now work with the partners on that implementation plan and bring that back on those third set of recommendations. So we agree those immediate things, the emergency response plan, and then we come back on the other recommendations.
Thank you. And I should add, Stephen, that the review itself was produced by a joint group that included Evelyn as a fellow councillor and myself, but it also included voluntary sector representatives. So we had Community Southwark, Pembroke House, Southwark Pensioner Centre all represented, as well as the NHS as well. So a partnership piece of work. This report will also be going to all of those partners. So it is going through to not the cabinet report, but the accompanying report from the review is going to all of those organisations, so they themselves can look at how they can respond to its recommendations as well. And I'd like to thank all of those people who were involved, as well as those who gave evidence.
Thanks, Kieran. I mean, I think the establishment of the community hub at the start of the pandemic crisis is one of the great feats of local government right across the country. You know, the fact that actually it's provided a model for us to improve the way in which we work with voluntary sector and care for some of our most vulnerable residents is, you know, just a complete bonus out of this awful time that we've experienced. So well done to everyone who's involved in that. I've got Councillor Evelyn Okoto of Old Kent Road Ward.
Thank you, Chair. And you took the words right out of my mouth in regards to the, you know, how quickly we got the community hub together. And it wasn't an easy feat, being able to now look strategically how we feed the whole borough, as it were, at that crucial time. It was an amazing feed, and I must say a big thank you to all the mutual aid groups, all the community organisations that were involved in this, and obviously those who were involved in the review. I think the most important thing going forward, as we now live or learn to live with COVID, is how we respond and how agile the community hub can be if or when we get a second wave. So it's really important that recommendation is there. And it's good that we continue to work together to see exactly how we support our residents going forward. But I think the most important thing is how we supporting our residents to stand on their own 2 feet. And I think that element, being able to kind of provide that support is really important going forward. So I just want to thank everyone involved in the creation of that, and obviously ongoing work that it will be there. Thank you.
Thanks very much indeed. Evelyn, Councillor Victoria Mills.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to Kieran for his work on this, and also Evelyn as well. Obviously, kind of today, part of what we're doing is just agreeing that we will respond to some of these recommendations in October. And I guess what I'm keen that we don't lose is that some of the centralisation of services in recent times reflects how kind of our borough has changed in terms of how we're accessing digital infrastructure, but also reflects what the government has pushed us to do because of the way that welfare reform has happened. So I just think it's really important that as we are responding to these recommendations, we're also reflecting back on the story of the last 10 years and not losing some of the things that centralisation of some services has offered. That is not to say that we can't always do things better. And this report obviously challenges to do that. And of course, my usual reminder that unfortunately, with a very substantial budget hole to fill between now and setting the budget in February, I think if we are adding services, we need to check that they don't duplicate things that already exist. And if they do, then the challenge is if there's a better way to do it, we've got to stop doing the less effective way of doing it as well.
Thanks, Vicky, for that. Okay, any other comments? Otherwise, colleagues, there are 7 recommendations on. Michael Scorer.
Thanks, Peter. I don't want to miss an opportunity to thank Stephen Douglas, because he has worked amazingly hard on this. This has also had a very short turnaround time. I also think it's just worth saying, and I hope this is not repetition, that the attitude and the whole approach from voluntary sector and community colleagues has been fantastic. Along with NHS colleagues, we have people from GPs from the NHS, and people have really set aside their own organisational interests in the interest of building on one of the things that was said at the last Cabinet Committee, which was that we didn't want to lose that community spirit. And I really feel that has somehow been captured here. Councillor Mills' point about budget is absolutely right, and we had a lot of discussion about how we would make sure that the money that is in Southwark but is disparate, maybe not always coordinated well, can be that can happen much better. And I think the attitude and the willingness to have that discussion, I've rarely seen that in local government, and the conversations were fantastic. And I don't remember a single time in those meetings where organisations came along and spoke about their organisation and what they wanted out of it. So it was an extraordinary process, really. But that's it. I don't want to miss my chance to thank Stephen, because he has worked very hard, and well done for getting such a good report written, Stephen.
Thanks very much indeed, Michael. And Johnson Situ.
I just followed on for what Michael said and a little bit on what you were saying, Councillor John. It's the ability to be mobile, and officers and community groups have been able to do that in abundance. I'm thinking of regeneration officers helping delivering food packages as well, which has been phenomenal. So yeah, thank you, Kieran, thank you, Evelyn, for all of the work on leading this as well. So onwards and upwards.
Great stuff. Okay, colleagues, as I say, there are 7 recommendations on this report, which is due to come back to Cabinet in October. Can we agree those recommendations, please?
Agreed.
Agreed. Excellent. Okay, we jump back up to item 8, which is the refresh of the Council Plan 2018 to 2022, which is on supplemental, no, it was on appendix, I think, to our agenda. We set out in 2018, as we have done since 2010, a very bold and ambitious council plan for our borough, which included something like 170, I think, different pledges and service improvements and ways we were going to do things. And in the 2 years up until March, we were doing incredibly well on delivering those, including promoting our economy, creating the new homes that our borough needs and the vibrant places for people to live. Of course, COVID has had a massive impact, not only on our ambitions, but on our finances. And so we thought it was absolutely the right thing to do to take stock of our council plan at this point and to refresh it. And that refresh has meant that we've reduced the number of commitments that we're intending to make and set out within the council plan, and focus really on what a post-COVID world will look like for our borough, or a continuing COVID world will look for our borough, and what we can hope to achieve. And so we're concentrating very much on how we revitalise our economy, how we revitalise our communities. We've heard the Southwark Stands Together report earlier on and received that, but that's at the heart of our new council plan as well, and must be in a borough as diverse and as amazing as Southwark's. So the new council plan, it's focused, it's realistic, we hope, in terms of what we're going to be able to deliver between now and 2022. I don't think it's any less ambitious, actually, than the previous council plans. In some ways, it's more ambitious given the constraints and challenges that we're facing at the moment. But it's what a Southwark Labour Council is about, and what we've been about since 2010. We've had a decade of delivery, and it doesn't stop here. It has to grow and continue, and our borough has to thrive. And under new leadership, I know it will. And with this revised council plan, I know it will. So I commend this plan to you, colleagues, to take forward in whatever slightly amended iteration it might turn out to be over the coming months. But everyone in this meeting has been involved in putting this plan together. It is genuinely a collective team effort, and it reflects the people's priorities, our borough's priorities, and our ambitions to create that fairer future for all still in Southwark. A number of people have indicated. Richard, Leo, Rebecca, Steph, Kieran.
Thank you, Peter. I think this has been a fantastic process going through reviewing our council plan and coming up with the revisions that we've made. I wanted to pick out some particular things which have changed since we last put together the council plan back in 2018. That was before, obviously, we'd declared the climate emergency as a borough. So I'm really pleased that we've made that commitment, that we've announced at Council Assembly that we're putting together the strategy, and we'll be putting together over the next few months the action plan to deliver that strategy and consulting broadly on it. So having that as a key commitment there, and indeed, you know, an entire section within the plan, I think is really important. Some other key changes that we've put in here which need putting out, I think, is we've been a lot clearer about what we're going to be doing about electrical charging points for electric vehicles. I think that's really important. I think we had lots of commitments around and ideas about cycling, but they all seem to miss what seems to be the biggest issue that I get raised about cycling, which is where do we put the bikes when people don't have space at home? So the fact that we're putting a commitment in there clearly about new cycle hangers, I think is a really big improvement and shows our continuing commitment to improve facilities for cyclists. we started off in the council plan having a vaguish ambition around school streets without any numbers attached to it. We're now very much clearer about what we're doing on school streets, and indeed we're already in the decisions we made on school streets gone further ahead than the original council plan numbers that we'd discussed through that. And of course there's other things where we've made good progress as well. More space for walking and cycling with the works that we're doing around low traffic neighbourhoods at the moment. It's experimental work. It's controversial in places, but I think it's important that we are experimenting with low traffic neighbourhoods to see if they work and where they work, and I think that has a great opportunity for us. And whilst there are areas where it has sometimes felt a little bit like it's been 2 steps forward, 1 step back on some of the transport initiatives, particularly the Rotherhithe crossing, I am a bit more hopeful about one area where it has felt as if we've been banging our head against a wall continuously. It now feels as if maybe that wall's beginning to crack with the amount of times we've been banging our heads against it, and that's with the Camberwell train station. So let's hope we can make further progress on that one. But I just wanted to pull those out as key things which have changed since the last plan, Chair.
Thanks, Richard. And I think it's worth adding that we met with Andy Byford, the new TfL Commissioner, 2 weeks ago. And Andy gave his support to both the Bakerloo Line extension, to River Crossing, to Camberwell Station, to all of the projects that are so important to us. The problem is at the moment, as we know, that TfL's finances are fairly uncertain. So the good news is that we have a commissioner who's committed to our priorities. Bad news is we don't know where the money's coming from at the moment, but watch this space, as you said. Leo.
Thank you, Peter. So much in this council plan to be really proud of. I just wanted to pull out in particular the myriad ways in which we're deepening our approach to tackling the housing crisis in our borough, not least by looking to committing to campaigning on a whole range of things to change the housing system that we're operating in, from the investment environment, the welfare system, right to buy, land reform, just to make sure that we do everything possible to make sure that the housing that can come forward in this borough meets the needs of everybody, and it's never out of reach. Also, huge focus on empty homes, every tool available to us, which will be a really exciting agenda going forward, not to mention ending rough sleeping, the introduction of the renters union, the efforts to aggressively drive up standards in the private renters sector, where almost a third of our residents live. And also in the Great Estates initiatives, which are absolutely key now. So, the commitment to introduce a new waste infrastructure standard, to improving the guidance we have for how we touch our council blocks, and to rolling out what would be the largest allotment expansion programme anywhere in London for many decades. But I also wanted just to touch on as well the wording we have on the council homes programme. It's been hugely pressured by everything that's happened with the lockdown. Many projects have been delayed in starting on site. Many that have been on site have been slowed down significantly. But I'm just really proud and incredibly grateful to the really hard-working officers who work on the New Homes programme, who've kept things ticking over and have kept the entire programme really focused on delivery and moving through those key milestones. We had a commitment to deliver or be on site for 2,500 homes, council homes that is, and currently I'm always quite sceptical about this, but it's looking like we might exceed that by over 700 homes by 2022, which is a major achievement that this council has achieved. I just wanted to give one final focus as well on the fact that we have described the importance of the social regeneration charters and that approach to influencing how regeneration, development, growth, investment filters through our borough. It's critically important that in everything we do, we are always keeping an eye on reducing the health, housing, economic and educational inequalities in our borough. And I'm really pleased to see that have the prominence that it does. And just a final word, a huge note of gratitude to Vicki Mills, who did a huge amount of work steering this through. It was a great process, as Richard said, and it benefited hugely from her oversight. So big thank you to Vicki.
Thanks, Leo. Rebecca.
Thanks, Peter. I would just want to echo both Richard and Leo's comments. I think what we have here is a really ambitious council plan that I'm really excited that we will be able to continue delivering through till 2022. I guess there are 4 things that I was really keen to highlight within the new revised council plan that build on things that we had in here previously that I think continue to show the ambition that we have across the whole of the borough. The first of those is around our commitment to have 10,000 new trees planted by 2022. I want to particularly thank all of my cabinet colleagues who pushed us to come up with an even bigger number to make sure that we had something really significant that was in here and something that will truly make a difference. And to Richard's point, you know, we are taking the climate emergency very seriously, and actually 10,000 new trees is a huge amount that we are going to be able to plant across the whole of the borough to really show that commitment. The second thing is around the creative and cultural district that we're going to put in place in Camberwell and Peckham. This has evolved over the past couple of years, but it's something that, especially in light of COVID and the real impact that we've seen that it's had on our creative industries, that we think is really, really important for the next 2 years. I think this will be one of the sectors that continues to struggle over the coming months, and for all the conversations that I have with organisations across the borough, they are really struggling to see how they can get back to a way in which they can operate as normal. And our ongoing commitment to be able to develop that creative and cultural district in Camberwell and Peckham is our way of being able to provide that support over the next couple of years. Thirdly, I'm really delighted that we have in this council plan our commitment to becoming a borough of sanctuary. This is it relates to a motion that we passed at council assembly towards the end of last year, and there are a number of recommendations there that we have made significant progress on, and both myself and Councillor Okoto have been working on a cross-party basis to make sure that we can continue to deliver on those, and I'm really delighted that this is now a commitment within the council plan. And then the final one that I am keen to have in here, keen to discuss this afternoon, is around our ongoing commitments around libraries. I think what we've seen during this period, and as we start to unlock and come out of the scenario that we're in, is the huge importance of being able to have outward facing council services, and our libraries team have done an amazing job of being able to open as many libraries as possible across the borough and make them open in a safe way that allows individuals to be able to go back and not only access books but also access computers and all those other vital services that we provide in our libraries. And I'm really delighted that our commitments around the Walworth Library and Southwark Heritage Centre continue to remain within this plan, and that our ongoing commitments around libraries will be upheld going forward. Thanks, Peter.
Thanks, Rebecca. Stephanie.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, I just want to first of all thank Vicki as well. I think you've been absolutely amazing through this process, and especially when I was told to come up with a blank sheet of paper and draw up brand new commitments for the economy because of the effect COVID's had on the economy, and it was the right thing to do, and you pushed me on that. So I think, you know, you've been absolutely amazing in and instrumental in putting this together. In terms of the green and fair economic renewal, I think it's fair to say we've talked today very much about how communities have suffered through COVID, but our businesses have as well. We're still not out of the woods there yet. You hear today that Bolton's gone back into lockdown, and that restaurants can only deliver takeaways now. Restaurants are now closed, and that could happen in Southwark, and that will have an impact. The hospitality sector has absolutely suffered from this, and it's still really, really uncertain around that. But I think these are really, really strong commitments that actually put jobs at the centre, apprenticeships at its centre, that put our high streets at its centre. As we work from home, the actual, you know, the importance of high streets has never been more so, and that 15-minute city concept really, really is important. And I also think we need that to protect our high streets from potential planning laws that will be coming in, very draconian ones that actually serve to decimate our high streets if the government have their way around that. So there's a lot in here to help and support our businesses. There's a lot here around having a Green New Deal. I think, you know, we've declared a climate emergency. We need to have those green jobs that help us support that, and look at how we can be the green sector, the green quarter for London within that. Peter, you said this is a very bold council plan, and it is a very bold council plan, and I know that Kieran will absolutely be the person to drive this through and keep us on our toes and make sure that we deliver on this and lead us into that. But we couldn't have had a bold council plan without bold council plans before. we're lucky that we are in a situation where we can be bold, because we've always been bold, and that's been under your leadership. And I just want to say thank you. And I'm sort of welling up, but you've been amazing.
Thanks thank you, Steph. Thank you very much. Thank you, colleagues. Vicki Mills. Vicki is also actually standing down from Cabinet next week. And Vicki, you have been absolutely immense in terms of not just putting this council plan together, but the predecessor council plan. And you have been an amazing member of Cabinet over the last 6 years, and one of the most valuable members of Cabinet, in my view. You've never been afraid to say it as it is, and challenge the orthodoxy, but always with the best interests of our residents absolutely at heart. And I know you're going to go on and continue a life of public service, but you'll be missed from Southwark's Cabinet immensely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Leader. That's very, very generous of you. Is it now my turn to say something?
It is now your turn to say something.
Okay. Oh, as the children arrive, sorry, it's 5 o'clock screen time in our house. Just 2 minutes, kids. So, no, sweetheart, really? Yeah.
It's 5 o'clock.
I know it's 5.
Can I play it?
Maybe somebody else should go, and I should have my moment in a couple of seconds.
Okay, well, I'll take Jasmine, as long as her children have not just arrived home as well, and then we'll come back to you, Vicki, and then I'll go to Kieran last. So Jasmine.
Yeah, just on, you know, it's hard to follow, really. I feel really emotional now. It's one of those strange meetings, isn't it? I mean, I just think really our commitments, just 3 areas really I wanted to talk about. I start on older people, the residential care charter, building on the amazing work we've done on ethical care charter. Now, you know, basically extra care housing and nursing homes, all in this plan. Schools, Peter and I met with schools today, and we discussed narrowing the attainment gap, support for school leavers, all in this plan. And the last point I wanted to make was I really wanted to thank, well, actually, both Vicki and Peter, really. When I joined the Cabinet, it really is turning into one of those meetings, isn't it? But when I joined the Cabinet 2 years ago, you know, I was a little bit overwhelmed because all the policies that come out of Southwark, you know, amazing, free swim and gym, free healthy school meals, you know, universal services. And when the leader said to me, you know, part of your portfolio is to cause a revolution in mental health, I felt like going home and not coming back. And then I came back and I said, look, I've got an idea. I said, what we have to do is that the NHS are saying we can only support 35% of children and young people with mental health needs. And I think we should support 100%. That's what any self-respecting family would say. And there is a point to this because Vicki actually paid for it. She put the 2 million in the budget and we're maintaining it. But when I came out of his office, that goldfish bowl, I came out and I looked a bit despondent and I said to Richard, he said, how did your big idea go then, Jazzy? And I went, well, I said, I floated the idea and I said, we're going to support 100% of children and young people with mental health. And he went, and Peter said, oh, he's totally bought it, you're all right. And, you know, I can't imagine ever working. Well, I know that the next leader-elect's going to be even, you know, amazing, but you know, that is one of the best experiences of my life, really, being able to come up with things which have an impact on someone's life and having someone that is a leader, a boss, it's a boss, you know, that doesn't get in the way, but actually, you know, forces you to deliver. Anyway, I've said enough.
Thanks, Jasmine. Vicki.
I hope my children's prompt arrival on the dot of 5 o'clock, demanding exactly what was promised them, is a useful reminder that whoever has to do my job next has to be just as disciplined and just as demanding, and being absolutely clear that if you say you're going to do something, you've got to do it on time. So we're well trained in the Mills-Edwards household. But I mean, the idea of the council plan is not not that we don't have the big radical ideas. We should still have the big radical ideas, but actually the next challenge is, but what do you actually mean, and how are you actually going to do it, and when you're going to do it? And I think this council plan, like all of our council plans under Peter's leadership, absolutely sings with that. You can't afford to just kind of want to do things. You can't afford to wait around for a Labour government, which sadly we've now been waiting around for a very long time, and we'll continue to have to. You have to use the kind of levers that you have access to. And a lot of this council plan, we've talked about changes today, but actually a lot of this council plan, it is the golden thread from 2010. Those things remain. The things from 2018 that we went to the electorate on are still there. Yes, there are new things, but for me, kind of, it really does reflect kind of, what we've been about for the last 10 years. I mean, just to pick out a few quick things now that I am returning to all things Nunhead and East Dulwich and Honor Oak, is it's great to see that we're going to have 60 school streets. I've got a few suggestions for those, Richard. I will be in touch. I'm really hoping that the successor in terms of private rented sector is able to drive forward on the renters union and the golden standard in the private rented sector. These are consultations that have been put on hold because of COVID, but really ought to be now going back out, and that work really needs to imminently be picked up in the next few weeks, especially if we want to meet our May 2022 target. And finally, a really clear commitment in the Southwark Together section, that we will secure a site for the Black Cultural and Heritage Centre, which is something we said we're going to do. So let's get on and do it. So really proud that that's in there as well, very clearly. And I suppose finally, youth services should never be something about kind of that where the funding dips and rises depending on kind of what is available to us. I think the commitments around mainstreaming the Positive Futures Fund and really responding to what's come out of the youth review and what young people have told us they want in terms of services is about kind of making sure that we don't go through cycles with youth services. There's a clear and ongoing steady commitment to the young people of this borough, and I hope that's captured there. And I'm hoping I get second dibs on paying tribute to Peter, so I'm going to wind up instead by quickly paying tribute to Anya and the huge amount of work that she has done to pull this together. So thank you very much for that.
Thanks, Vicki. And yeah, I mean, we are, I make the point often, as politicians, we're great at making promises. It's a team of officers who go out normally and deliver for us and put those promises into action. Good question from Matt Lane in the chat section about Raise the Curtain and our ambitions there. Matt, it's not lost as an ambition, even though it might not be highlighted in this. There's a reality about what we can deliver during this financial year in terms of that programme. But our commitment, and I know Rebecca's nodding along here to this, our commitment to the cultural sector and creative sector, particularly for our young people in the borough who desperately need that exposure to our culture and creativity that is so vibrant in Southwark, has not been lost at all. So it might not be as expressly stated, but it's there and continues. Okay, finally, Kieran.
Firstly, I wanted to add my thanks, particularly to Vicki and Anya, who've done the real heavy work in turning all of our ideas into something that's written down on paper and sets out our ambition. As others have said, this is a genuinely ambitious plan for our borough in a current context that's incredibly difficult. And we all know we face both the threat of further waves of COVID-19 alongside an economy that's in a recession. But I suppose I reflect on this and just think, 10 years ago, when you were a new leader of the council, Peter, we were also just coming out of a recession at that point, with a new incoming government that was doing its best to take money off every Labour council in the country. And at the same time, I'm sure the world was saying to you, now's the time not to be ambitious, but just to do what you can. So I absolutely take that lesson from your last 10 years, that this plan, despite the circumstances, has to be an ambitious one for our borough, and it is. Over the next few months, it goes out to consultation. We agree it formally at Council Assembly, I think, is it November, December time? and we will make a few changes along the way to make sure, for example, that we bring in the specifics out of the Southwark Stands Together work, and indeed the work around the Southwark Community Alliance as well, and to strengthen it a bit. But I think it is a really, really firm footing for our borough for the next few years. And thank you to everyone who's put it together.
Thanks, Kieran. Okay, well, there are two recommendations to agree the proposed refresh for public consultation. And note that following that public consultation, the leader will approve the final format of the council plan to be taken to Council Assembly on the 25th of November 2020. Can we agree those two recommendations, colleagues?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. Well, those are the final two recommendations on the final report of this Cabinet meeting. Rebecca indicated we had an item of any other business.
I do indeed, Peter. It falls to me to start what we are now using as our official thank you for your leadership over the last 10 years of the council, and even longer as the leader of Southwark Labour Group. Obviously, this isn't how any of us imagined your send-off would be. For a start, you have ended up staying in post far longer than you wished to do. But we wanted to thank you for your leadership of the council since 2010. On a personal level, you've always challenged me in a good way, obviously, but it's meant that I've always had what's in the best interests of our residents front of mind when we've been taking decisions. And obviously the council plan that we've spoken about today is testament to the amazing ambition that you've had for the borough, and I hope that we can continue to do it justice going forward. So I'm going to hand over to all of my other cabinet colleagues, but I just wanted to thank you for all of your leadership over the last 10 years. And Southwark is of course a much better place for you having had that vision that you set out and being able to deliver on it over those past 10 years. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Rebecca. Richard.
And then you're going to have to chair a round of thanks.
Who do you want to praise you next?
So I think Peter just called me. Peter, I'm going to be slightly cheesy here. I'm going to quote Fat Boy Slim. We've come a long, long way together through the hard times and the good. I have to celebrate you, Peter. I have to praise you like I should. And it has been a very long time. As you know, I've been on cabinet for all 10 and a bit years that you've been leader. I've unlike most of the rest of the people, I think probably in this call, I can remember previous leaders. So I think I've known 5 leaders of the council close at hand. Some good, some less good, but it's very clear of all of those you have been exemplary and by far the best of the lot. My time with you isn't only the 10 years I've been with you on cabinet, but 14 years in group as you as leader. And indeed, I was, whilst not a councillor at the time, I was an observer when you were first elected as leader, and indeed counted the votes. So I can tell everybody that it was done fairly. He was legitimately elected back in 2004. But I've known you longer than that still. I think I've known you for a decade longer than that. I think I first met you in 2004, which means I've known you for most of my life, if not quite most of yours. And I think what has been very clear in that time is how, certainly as leader, you've managed to get that balance right between having focus on the vision and what is it we need to achieve, what's the grand thing that we're trying to get to, but also very clearly on what we need to deliver and how we do it and what we do and the practicalities of getting there. And I think that's from what I've seen in the past, that's a rare gift. Not all leaders manage to do that well, set that broad vision, but also know what they're trying to achieve in terms of those individual steps to achieve. And of course, 10 years ago, and Kieran mentioned already, 10 years ago, it was just as a Tory government was coming in, clamping down on local authorities, squeezing us through austerity. And at that time, I think lots of the things that we were trying to do were viewed by council officers as being mad socialist things which are completely and utterly unaffordable in those circumstances. Mad ideas like free healthy school meals, which couldn't possibly be done and afforded, which was such a mad socialist idea that a few years later, the government adopted part of it. Living wage was a lovely idea, but we couldn't possibly afford to do it and couldn't afford to have a living wage charter. And of course, George Osborne a few years later at least tried to ape it, if not actually doing it properly. And when I think it was me and Catherine MacDonald came to you with the slightly mad idea of having the ethical care charter and saying it shouldn't just be about the living wage, but making sure that people working in the care industry are both get holiday pay, get proper hours, don't get paid for the travel time between jobs, get sick pay. You were happy to take that on board and help us push that along. And I think those have all been things which are transformational, and they wouldn't have happened without you as leader there pushing those along and enabling those to happen. Finally, it's probably the one thing or some of the things I can't talk too much about in detail here, because Doreen will have a heart attack. Are probably the things that we can't possibly talk about here in public, because there are those difficult conversations and difficult events which, for very good legal reasons, can't be mentioned in a forum like this. And I think actually, and you'll know particularly some of the ones that I'm referring to, I think that has really shown what an exemplary leader you have been able to take through those very difficult decisions in a way that has been very fair, very thorough, no doubt in part because of your barrister's background to get that right in terms of doing it. But those are the secrets that some of us will have to take to the grave rather than bring out in public. But I think it's right that the council know that that's often what happens in some of those difficult decisions. So, as I said, you have been a superb leader. Southwark has been exceptionally happy to have you as leader for the last 10 years. And I think, along with all of us, we wish you every success in your future ventures.
Thanks, Richard. Thank you very much. Leo.
Gosh, I don't know how I'm going to top that. I don't know what you were not confessing there to, Richard. I think we're all intrigued. Peter, I also just want to give my deepest sort of personal gratitude to you for giving me an opportunity to realise my contribution and to raising my standards, very frankly, at times over many years. I'm very, very grateful. I also just want to confess that back in 2012, when I started sort of organising in South Bermondsey and thinking about being a councillor, I was, for want of a better word, spying on you, going to various public meetings, standing at the back, trying to get the measure of what kind of man I might be working under. And you were absolutely inspiring then, and you're absolutely inspiring now. I think the thing that really is will probably be my lasting impression is your deep commitment to improving housing standards for everybody in this borough, no matter what background, income they come from. That's been such a key driver of the council house building programme. And also just your commitment to making bold stretch targets. 11,000 council homes was an absurdly high number, much, much higher than anyone else was talking about at that time. I'm sure people in this call, some officers, still think it's absurdly high, but the effect of creating that goal has been to give members, officers, people we've been working with license to almost bend reality and turn that into something that can actually be achieved. And I hope that the report we put through, I think it was last April, presenting the routes to 11,000 across land, resources, delivery capacity, really showing how that could happen within a generation. You will take that as a little bit of a tribute to your ambition and your madness. So that's all I want to say, really. But this borough is really lucky to have had you as our leader, and I hope you go on to do great things. And of course, I hope you stay in touch and continue to give us your advice. Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Leo. It's very kind. Evelyn.
Oh, it's supposed to me. What can I say, Peter? Sad time. But not all good things come to an end. I think the first time I remember seeing you or interacting with you is when I got selected in 2014. I knew no one in the Labour group, as it were, and I was really nervous. I think it was one of my first campaigns day. I think it was a borough-wide campaign, and I had turned up. I knew no one. I was really nervous. Didn't know how I'll be treated. Didn't know how people would react to me. And you were the first person that came across the road. I clearly remember you crossed the road, you introduced yourself, and you welcomed me. And I think from that day on, I realized that I have an ally there. You made me feel comfortable. I could speak to you. I still can. If I've got an issue, I can come to you. Your door is always open. And I think for me, that just really allayed any fears I had coming into the group, and allowed me to kind of step up. Like Leo, I just want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to be in cabinet. I think if it wasn't for you, for the confidence you gave me, I don't think I would have really stepped up. And so I want to thank you for that. I want to also, just want to make clear that there's a lot of battles you do behind closed doors that people don't know. I remember when COVID came in and there was all this talk about inequalities, you fought on the NHS level, you fought for us to really look at the inequalities. You asked hard, tough questions that people wanted to ignore over and over again. No one knows about this, but it's through conversation that I know the things you do. You champion diversity, you champion, for us to close the inequalities gap. It's not something you kind of rave about publicly, but this is what you do behind closed doors. So I just want to say a big thank you. You've really pushed the boat in so many ways. You've supported us, and you are a force to be reckoned with. You are talented. I just can't keep gushing over you enough. But I think one thing I will say that made me kind of realize that I would be a supporter of yours for a long time is that the fact that my mum took a liking to you straight away. Well, Mom took a liking to Peter from the first day she met him, and she goes, I like him, I like him. There's something about him. I like your leader. And every other time I speak to her, she'll ask, how is Peter? How is Peter? How's Peter doing? As if she knows you, is he okay? So from that day on, I thought, if she likes you, there's something good, you're a good one. So I just want to say a big thank you for all the things you've done for me personally, for the group, for cabinet, for leading and being a strong leader. You fought a lot of internal battles, and you've come, across very, very well. So thank you for all the things you've done. I know you've got a bright future ahead of you. So enjoy the rest of your years.
Thank you. Thank you, Evelyn. You're too kind. This is crazy. I'm just going to take it in list order. Kieran, Vicki, Johnson, and Jasmine. Kieran, leader-elect.
And me.
Oh, and you, Steph, my successor.
It was hard to follow everyone else, isn't it? Hard to follow everyone else. Peter, I mean, I there are so many things to say, but what strikes me is you walk around our borough and it's really hard to go somewhere where you don't see a bit of your legacy. And so whether it's Mount View in Peckham, or the Construction Skills Centre down in Walworth, or it's new council homes being built, or it's new libraries, or parks, or playgrounds, or leisure centres, you've physically changed Southwark. And it's a much better place for it. And I can only live in hope that by the time I stand down, I have a legacy that's as clear for all to see as that.
Thank you. Thank you. It's lovely. Vicki.
What to say? So I suppose for me, Peter, I think I am the only 2010 councillor in cabinet. Of course, you were instrumental in 2010, and Richard was here too. But I think the 2010 intake are a kind of slightly special breed. Of course, I say that. We saw but a glimpse of opposition that you guys were kind of dealing with, and the utter futility of those years that we spent in opposition. And election night and election day, the following day, was very bittersweet, because we saw kind of a loss of a Labour government, and we knew that our task in Southwark had suddenly become immeasurably harder. But we had a brilliant election victory in Southwark, which has allowed us to have the last 10 years under your leadership and the real delivery that we've seen. And I think our response to kind of where we were left in 2010 could have been to wring our hands. It could have been to say, oh, we can't do these things without a Labour government. Oh, isn't it best to campaign and to wait for that government? And I'm so glad that we didn't, because the kids that were going to nursery and reception in 2010, in 2024, which is our next chance of having a Labour government again, they'll have gone through school. That opportunity to change their life because of a Labour government will have been lost. but our opportunity here in Southwark has been taken because of you. I'm struggling now a bit. The other two things that I wanted to say were, I always remember how when in 2014 you said, I want you to be cabinet member for children and schools. I said, I can't do that. I mean, I had 2 kids under the age of 2, and you said, yes, you can. And I think your kind of support for women has always been about how you can elevate them rather than how they can elevate you. And so that's brilliant. So thank you. And finally, if I can manage it, I think you've always governed for all of Southwark. It's very easy to kind of retreat to our comfort zone, and the last 5 years on a national scale show that. But that's not what we've done in Southwark. We have always governed for every resident, from the north right down to the south, whatever people's political persuasions, whatever their race or gender or religious affiliation. And we've always had a programme that has been both broad but truly radical, and and that is a kind of real legacy to your leadership. And I want to thank you for everything you've done and for giving me a chance to be part of it.
Johnson.
Yeah, I'm definitely not sure how I come after that. Peter is somebody I heard of before I actually saw. It's fair to say, because of my dad, I'd heard of Peter quite a bit, and it's fair to say, all good things, by the way. It's fair to say, when I eventually did meet Peter, the time I did was, I'm not sure if you'll remember this, but there was a debate, it was a discussion before the 2014 election. It was at the Civic Suite on the Oak Kent Road. And somebody asked me, I think it might have been Nicholas at the time, asked me to speak as one of the new candidates. And he didn't mention that the other person that will be speaking will be the leader of the council. So I had just been really newly selected, and I'm not going to use the word I want to use, but I was bricking it because I had to give this address with Peter, my boss of all intents and purposes, who will probably be seeing me for the first time. It went well, and then he texted me. I didn't know how he got my number, but he texted me afterwards that it went well. And I highlight that because, somebody once said to me, I think the mark of a person is how they treat people who are not necessarily their equals, but how they treat people that are newly or below them. And as a newly selected candidate, by all intents and purposes, in a group of 30 to 40 people, I'm sure I'm not the most important person, but to take time out to recognise that was really, really important, and certainly made me feel at home as someone about to be elected and join the Labour group as well. I wanted to briefly just talk about a few things that other colleagues have mentioned, and things that I feel really stand Peter out. The ability to listen is so important. Everybody's talked about their ease at which they've been able to put forward new ideas, and their ease in which they've been able to put forward radical, bold things that and haven't been shut down as well. So the ability to listen is so important. The ability to be bold, and I think that marks the last 10 years in putting forward bold policies as well. And credit to Peter for leading the charge and being bold and never relenting from being bold. And then the final thing, and it links in with what Leo was saying in terms of quality housing, and Vicki touched on this as well, is the fact that there's a firm belief that no matter your background, no matter your upbringing, you deserve the best. And there's quite a difference between saying to somebody you deserve to have the bare minimum to saying you deserve the best. And I think that's an approach that certainly Peter's brought to housing. It's approach that Peter's brought to a range of policy portfolio areas. And it's a particular approach that I talked about at the time that really inspired me, was the approach to young people, and particularly Southwark scholars. As an incoming candidate, to have a manifesto, to stand on a manifesto that basically says we will support you as you go on to higher education and support you as you back your dreams. that for me is a game changer, and particularly seeds as well. Again, with young people, 18 to 24-year-olds, if you want to set up a business or you want to get a job, we will support you and pay up to the London Living Wage is really important. And so I will end on this note. From one of the recent Southwark Scholar events that I attended, I think Jasmine and Evelyn were there as well, and a young scholar said, I felt valued when I got my scholarship. And Peter, I hope you reflect on that and say your leadership did that to that person, to that young person, and it did it for not just that young person, but thousands of others across the borough.
Thanks, Johnson.
Stand up.
I've got Jasmine, Stephanie, and Wingfield has asked to say something as well.
Yes.
So this goes on.
I know. I feel like I've already, explained how you've inspired me to be bold. So I'll just, there's just a couple more things I wanted to say really, and that is, when I first met you, your reputation had preceded you because I was busy, while you were saving the world, I was busy building Rye Lane Massive with Joanna and Mark, and I heard so much about you, you know what I mean? Your reputation preceded you. And then when I met you, we were knocking on doors together, and I have to say, it's not being recorded, this, is it? Of course it is. But I have to say, when I met you, I was just so taken aback by your charisma. I found it very difficult to string a sentence, together, really. We were working, knocking on doors, but, I just thought you were so amazing. I couldn't really speak straight. Anyway, you recruited me to the Labour group. I basically joined, stood for election, you supported me. And then when I joined the Labour group, basically, you were so supportive of me, and I've always wanted to think that I've spent my life wanting to change the world. And then I saw with such ease, I've been an officer, I've worked in different administrations on the other side, and you make small gains and it gives you a spring in your step. But actually, when I saw what we were delivering here in Southwark was a socialist programme. I mean, when I grew up, I really hated free school meals. We used to have a separate queue, and I really despise that. And the fact that we roll that out, the universality of that is so important. Oh, sorry. The universality of, look, I said I couldn't speak. Now I can't speak at all. Anyway, I can see how important it is really. And I really didn't think I would be a councillor for this long really, because being an officer, you have this thing that if you live in the realm of policy and developing ideas for too long, you become detached from the people that you want to support. So I always thought that I would be a councillor for a bit, try and change the world, and then go back to work, and be grounded. But actually, look what you have done to me. I mean, I could not believe that I would stand to be deputy leader. I mean, that's it. I've signed my life away. And just at my pinnacle of my career, you're going to walk out. Goodness me. I see what you did there. Anyway, I've gone on for too much, but you've not seen the last of me. I don't care where you go. I'm not just for Christmas. I'm a friend for life. So I'll be coming for Sunday dinner next week. Anyway, that's enough.
Thanks, Jasmine. Steph, this is all too much for you.
No, so I remember the first time I met you, Peter. It was I went to my first ever borough conference in 2010, just after you took over administration. And I remember asking a question, and then you came over to me afterwards and said hello, called Barry over, and then left, and I didn't see you for several years after that. But I got to know you when you were twinned with us in Rotherhithe, leading up to winning the election and actually gaining the award. And you're amazing. You have this charisma, but on the doorstep, people love you. And I know why Evelyn's mum loves you. My mum loves you as well, from when she's met you at the Southwark pensioners events as well. She always asks after you, how's Peter? And it's like, yeah. So you have the vision, you have the drive, you have the leadership, but you also know how to speak to people. And that's so important. You keep it grounded, and that's there, and it always has been. I just want to say thank you. You put me into cabinet once I've been a councillor just for a year. You saw something in me, you believed in me, so thank you for that. My best memory of you is on my birthday in Liverpool at conference. Me, you, and Rob Smith on the their equivalent of the London Eye, going round and round and round, seeing the sights of Liverpool and hearing loads of facts about Cilla Black around that. That was really, really great. But you will be missed. You've been inspirational. You will be missed, and you're just a class act. You really are.
Thanks, Steph. Thank you very much. Ian. Ian, are you there?
It's probably
Sorry,
wiping his tears.
I was having a Sunil moment, I think, but sorry about that.
Yeah,
thank you for allowing me to agree this, allowing me to join this love feast.
Yeah.
You certainly deserve all the honours that's been given you today. On behalf of the backbench voting members of the council who have to defend cabinet decisions, I bring you greetings and salutations, and we hope that you will have a tremendous future in front of you, because it's not an obituary we're giving today, I hasten to add, compared to other comments. Can I beat Richard Livingston, first of all, and say I've known all 10 leaders of Southwark Council, and can certainly say, although you're not the longest serving, you didn't beat John O'Grady's record, but you came close. You've certainly been, I think, the best that has contributed to the development of this borough, and I think you stand head and shoulders above all of them in that regard. Can I also say that I also recall a young, fresh-faced lawyer in the 1990s standing in Riverside Ward. I don't know what the hell happened to that person, but their effort, their commitment, their dedication to both the party and the borough was second to none. And I think you demonstrated that over the years. People have talked about all the tremendous achievements since 2010. I'd like to particularly concentrate on the wake of Lacanau, our warm, dry, safe housing program, and then the Housing Commission that we launched. You know, that's an example of your bravery, political bravery, and your radicalness, I think Vicki referred to earlier. And I also think, you know, you epitomise what Johnson referred to in terms of what we're all about as a Labour Council. You know, looking after those that can't look after themselves, defending the needy, and improving people's lives and getting people better opportunities and a better start in life. And we've demonstrated that over and over again. So what I'd just like to say, Peter, it's been a great pleasure to work with you and a great honour, and I wish you all the best for the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. That's very, very, very kind. And the Chief Exec has indicated she wants to speak, so I'll take her, and then I think we will have to wrap up.
Oh no, I think this could go on all night, Peter. Thank you very much. I know it's sort of like unusual to be allowed to come on as an officer to speak at Cabinet, but I think that I do actually have to say thank you on behalf of all of the officers. You have just been absolutely amazing. There are stories that I could tell that I wouldn't be able to, because I won't be able to sort of like not get choked up, and I have actually promised you that I won't cry. But one thing that I would actually sort of like point out in relation to Peter, and I would say this in all sincerity, and bearing in mind I started in local government in 1974, that he is absolutely head and shoulders the best leader that I have worked with, and I have lost count of the number of leaders that I've worked with, bearing in mind that I worked with 8 leaders of the council in 8 years in Tower Hamlets. And I really hope that Kieran follows in your footsteps rather than in the footsteps of some of the other nutters that I've had to deal with over the years. What I would say 2 things about you, Peter, in relation to what you brought to the relationship between the members and the officers, which I think were absolutely invaluable. And on top of the absolute clarity in relation to our vision and our values and the principles that are through Southwark now like a stick of rock. And I think that's one of the things that I hold dearest in relation to what we've achieved over the last 10 years, is the culture change that we've achieved with within the borough, and Southwark Stands Together showed us earlier that we've still got lots to achieve, but we have achieved a culture change of really instilling in this authority that we have to treat people as a valued member of our family, and everybody knows that that is what is expected of them. But the two things that I would pull out is, one, that you always listen, even if you don't agree, and God knows we've had disagreements, but even if you disagree, you always listen, and you particularly sort of like listen at the times where I've said, I'm not saying no, but I'm saying I haven't worked out how to do it yet, so just be careful how you word the promise. And that gave us the leeway to achieve all manner of things in a really, really positive way. And the second thing I would say is that you never ever forget to say thank you, to the point that on the very rare occasion when you haven't actually said it enough, people say, oh, he wasn't usually as effusive in his thanks as he normally is, and they feel a bit hurt. You never ever forget to say thank you. And you also, and you said it earlier on tonight in relation to the council plan, you never forget that a political promise is only a promise until the officers put their shoulder to the wheel and deliver on that promise. And you have repeated that over and over, and I'm very grateful that you repeated it again tonight. There's a story that I could tell that I'll draw a veil over a dog previously called Ralph, because it involves tears, midnight phone calls, and me driving like a maniac down the A12. But we'll draw a veil over that, because I think those people who know that story know that story. But a story that some people might not know is that we went to an event, which I think was the 75th anniversary of the Battle of Britain or something, on HMS Belfast, and somebody terribly grand introduced us to somebody terribly elderly and important in the military. And he introduced us as the leader and chief executive of Southwark Council, and he mistook us for husband and wife and said it was wonderful to keep it in the family. I felt mortified for Peter, you know, for all manner of reasons, but not least because I'm, you know, 10 years older than him. But we did manage. We've had so many laughs, really, so many laughs. It's been amazing. And as I said before, we've laughed till we've cried, and we've cried till we laughed. And I think that's a measure of a working relationship, and also a very sort of like special friendship. That's a really excellent thing. The final thing that I would say is that I will never, ever forget the support that you gave me personally in relation to Grenfell. And given that Grenfell in my entire career is the most difficult and most challenging thing that I've ever had to face, having somebody there who was able to listen to you know, tears and challenge, and to listen to how horrific it all was, and to soak some of that up and provide support for it, but also to be the one person to say there's a point at which you're going to actually have to put this down, to be that conscience. So being that support, but also being that conscience, I think is sort of like the mark of the man. So you are a consummate politician. You have been an absolutely incredible leader, but you're also a really, really lovely person. And that's why you've had so many heartfelt tributes tonight. And I didn't cry, but if I don't stop now, I probably will. So thank you very much. And we absolutely love you to bits. And that's from all of the officers of the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Eleanor. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Well, look, it's all been too much. I have got tears rolling down my face because it's just been too much. You've all been very kind. I'm absolutely conscious of the fact that you know, no leader does anything on their own. You do it as part of a team. And I think since 2010, we have been incredibly lucky in Southwark that we have had cabinets who have formed brilliant teams. We've had officers who have been part of that team as well. And I think it's because we've been so clear about what our respective responsibilities are. And it's also because we've signed up as members and officers to those shared values that Eleanor referred to. One thing that really got me last week when I was watching Council House Britain, within the first 30 seconds, one member of Southwark staff was saying to another, in Southwark, we treat everyone like they're a member of our family. And I thought, yes, this really is embedded. These values that we talk about really are embedded. and lived on the front line by our staff. And that's why Southwark Council stands out above others. You know, I'm so proud as well that we have, over this 10 years, delivered on our promises. And why is that important? It's because people are so disillusioned with politics and what politicians say. Why should we believe you? And that is why we've always said, you know, if we're going to make a promise, we're going to keep it. We're going to deliver on it. Do our small part in Southwark to restore some trust and confidence in the political class, in us. And I think that's been vitally important. And I'm so proud that we have delivered on what we have promised to our residents. I'm super proud of free healthy school meals, of free swim and gym, of the improvements that we've made to housing. I genuinely think that it should be a Labour value that you know, you want the very best housing for your residents. I can't see that there is any political pride to be taken from leaving people living in poor accommodation just because of its particular tenure. I want people to be living in the best accommodation because we know if people are living in the best housing, they're going to have the best life chances that they can. And I'm so pleased that we've also seen a vibrant economy in our borough in the last decade and so many more people finding work. So we've been able to deliver on our programs of apprenticeships and new jobs. It does feel like it has been transformational, and to be part of a team that has been so transformational has been a great privilege and honour. And yes, I love the Southwark scholarships, so please do keep them because they do change people's lives. Recognising, you know, people from low-income backgrounds who are not only excelling academically, but they're giving something to their community. I think that's a really great thing, and to leave them without the debt burden that so many others have faced is a great thing. You know, it has been a decade of delivery. We're facing really difficult times ahead. I was due to go in March, and COVID-19 meant that you know, we've been tested in a completely different way. And I think, again, the mark of the way in which we've been able to respond in Southwark is because we had such strong foundations in all that we were doing in our programmes. And, you know, I think it sets us up as well to overcome some of the greater financial challenges of the coming years. You know, and I absolutely do wish Kieran and his new cabinet all the very best for what comes next. I do want to thank everyone who served in cabinet with me. I want to thank all officers. You know, it's been wonderful. It's been wonderful because Southwark is the best borough in London. And as somebody said to me, you know, London is the best city in the UK, and the UK is the best country in the world. So strangely, it seems that we've been in the best place in the world for the last decade. I shall miss you hugely, and I shall miss being leader, but it's the right time to go, and Southwark has an incredibly bright future, despite the challenges we face. So thanks for these wonderful tributes, and good luck.
Yeah.
Thank you, colleagues, and I think that concludes this meeting and this item of any other business.
Yes.
See you soon.
See you soon all.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you, Chair. Bye.